So, dear students, we will continue chapter number 15, Balance of Payments. The previous voice note we discussed the definition. Now we would discuss the components of balance of payments. So basically we have two sides, the credit side and the debit side. We have the current account and the capital account. When we import goods, we need to pay. So the payment side would denote the debit side. And when we export the goods, we will receive. So the receipt side is the credit side. So it's very easy. The current account is classified under debit and credit. Debit would involve all the payment side. Credit would involve the income or the receipt side. Similarly, we also break the component into capital account. So again, when the Indian currency is flowing out, it will come in the debit side. So capital payments would fall under the debit side. So capital payments like lending to a foreign country, capital repayments to or purchase of assets from foreigners. In the debit side, we also include the unilateral transfer payments. We include the unilateral transfer payments under current account, my dear friends. So, gifts, indemnities, etc., made to foreigners. Similarly, if we receive gifts, indemnities means, let's say, if you are receiving some money on account of war damage. So, I think it's clear. So, just asking you a simple question, if you're exporting the good out of India, where would you note this economic transaction? Sir, we will note it under current account on the credit side. Good. So you got it. So the current account records transactions relating to export and import of goods and services, unilateral transfers and international incomes. Thus, the balance on current account is the value of exports minus the value of imports adjusted for international incomes and net transfers. So, net transfers means unilateral transfers. Similarly, capital account records all international economic transactions relating to change in assets, both financial and physical. It is a record of short term and long term capital transactions, both private and official. So, there's a format in your textbook, dear friends. You should just go through the format. So, current account transactions, export and import of goods or merchandise. So, basically, if you are to write a short note on current account transactions, note number 1 would be export and import of goods or merchandise. So, here when we need to write, we can elaborate that physical goods exported and imported. So, debit side would mean import of goods because we pay in the foreign currency. Now, you can be asked a question, what do we mean by visible trade? Visible trade. So, if you go through the format, the rows 1 and 6. 1 is export of goods, and row 6 on the debit side is import of goods. So when we talk about the trade, trade is basically export and import. So when we talk about visible trade, so what is visible in the current account? How much you exported, that is visible. How much you imported, that is visible. Okay. So if a country exported 100 crores and imported 20 crores, so net is 80 crores. Okay. So basically you can see it clearly in the row 1 of export of goods, in the row 6 of import of goods. So visible trade comprises goods such as cars. These are visible. You're doing a trade, and cars, aluminium, tea, iron ore, etc., which are tangible and have physical form. And we can see these when they cross the boundaries of the country. So, visible trade. Similarly, if we try to answer the question, what do we mean by invisible items? So, they are those items, those are not tangible and cannot be seen, but trade is taking place. So, invisible items, services are generally invisible. Unilateral transfers are invisible. Income is invisible. So, I hope you understand it quite clearly what is visible and what is invisible. So, services, it includes large variety of non-factor services sold. Since it is an international selling of service, right? It is not a factor service. You are not taking part in the factor of production. So generally it is a non-factor services sold to and purchased by the residents of a country from the rest of the world. So export of services. Now, since I told you students, it is a non-factor services. What do we mean by non-factor? Basically, they are such services which are not taking part in production. So, but services are given. What services? Which type of services? Example is shipping services. Example is banking and insurance services. So, banking services, shipping services, insurance services, dear students, they are non-factor services. So, payments received for these services are put on the credit side. As we already know, when we receive something, we will put on the credit side. When we pay, we will put it on the debit side. So, payments received from these services, what do we mean by these services? Shipping services, banking services, insurance services, also known as non-factor services. They would be put on the credit side. Now, dear students, India is aiming for lot of tourism. Like the Ayodhya Mandir would be a good tourist spot. The Statue of Unity has already become a good tourist spot. So, income through tourism, where foreigners come to India, okay, is another example of income from services. Is it a factor service? No. So, when foreign tourists come to India and spend on Indian goods, they buy the goods or the bags manufactured by Indians. So, they have to pay for it in their own currency. They exchange the dollars, enabling India to acquire foreign exchange. Okay, and this is a good thing. So, all the Indians should be happy that India is soon going to become a huge tourist destination. So, a lot of foreign currency we are going to gain. In the same way, when we talk about row 7, which is import of services, so payments which residents of a country make to foreigners for similar services, like we pay the foreign companies for shipping, banking, and insurance, or if we go abroad as tourists, right? So these are all on the debit side. So I think it is very, 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 very easy. Next, we can discuss unilateral transfers. You already know what exactly is meant by unilateral transfers, but certain good words would help you fetch marks. So, unilateral transfers are those receipts and payments which take place without any service in return in the current period. So, no service in return. So, we say there is no quid pro quo, means nothing in return, no return, nothing. Unilateral means one sided. So, row 3, unilateral transfers. Okay. These are receipts. When we are talking about row 3, it is a credit side. So, definitely these are receipts which the residents of a country receive for free without any payment in return. So, example of this kind of receipts are gifts, donations, which the residents receive from abroad. So, I am an Indian, but I have a friend in London and she wants to send me a gift. So, friends, relatives, and even government of other countries. So, cash remittance by the people settled in other countries to their families is also a transfer receipt. Okay, so you should be knowing all these things. If you are asked a small question, you will not feel confused. So, there is a term called indemnity payment. Indemnity payment means payment made for damages. Let's say there was a gossip or there was a rumor that China would should pay for the COVID-19 virus. And imagine if on the international court China agreed to pay that okay, due to our negligence the world suffered, so we will be paying. That payment would be termed as indemnity. Okay, indemnity payment, payment made for damages incurred during a war made by other countries, is also an example of transfer receipts. So whenever we are receiving, of course they are on the credit side. In the same way, if we go to row 8, okay, so basically uh, just add 5. Row 1 is export of services, so just add 5 plus 5, so it becomes row 6 import of goods. Sorry, row 1 is export of goods, so plus 5, row 6 is import of goods. Row 2 is export of services, so plus 5, and the debit side it is import of services. So dear students, just go through it. You'll be easily able to recall and remember. Just take a note of it. So when we talk about incomes, so incomes are classified into investment incomes and compensation of employees. So investment income comprises of interest, dividends, profits, etc., which resident of a country earn from investments made abroad. So if you make an investment abroad and you earn interest and dividend, okay, on foreign loans and investments, so they provide foreign currency. Of course, whenever you're receiving something, you take it on the credit side. So these items are entered on the credit side. So similarly, just do the opposite for payments on the debit side. So these earnings are entered on the credit side, row 4, which is income receipts. Okay, the title is income receipts. Since a country is able to acquire foreign exchange thereby. So 4 plus 5, I just said the difference is plus 5. So in the same way, row 9 covers payments which residents of a country in question make to non-residents for labor services in the form of wages, salary, etc. So dear students, we completed discussing about the components of payments, and we just covered the current account. So capital account transactions, they are very easy. You just can go through self reading, or let us complete it. Okay, so capital account transactions are different from current account transactions. So capital account, they show change in the stock magnitude. Please, the word is stock magnitude. They refer to capital receipts and payments. So please, dear students, capital receipts is row number 5 and capital payments is plus 5, that is row number 10. So they relate to international movements of long term and short term capital. So when we receive capital, foreign currency is received, it is in the row number 10. No, it is in the row number 5 because we are receiving it is in the credit side. So when we pay, it is in row number 10. So when residents of a country borrow from abroad, we say they are importing capital. They would acquire foreign currency and it would be entered as a credit item in row 5. So when we are borrowing from abroad, basic idea is we are getting foreign currency. On the other hand, when the resident of a country invest abroad, we say that we are exporting capital. In order to do this, they need to obtain foreign currency. They generate demand for foreign currency. This transaction is therefore a debit item in the balance of payments account under row 10. So capital movements can take various forms. We understood the capital movement. Now capital movement, an individual can do it. The government or the corporation or individuals of a particular country, they may take loan. So whenever you are taking a loan, okay, you may take loan. The government of India can take loan from government of abroad, any other country, or any multinational company can take loans, inter loans, or an individual can take loans. So government, corporation, or individual residents may receive payment from abroad as repayment for a loan that they might have lent abroad. So what loan they had lent, they are receiving that. Or foreigners might acquire asset in the country with whose balance of payments we are concerned. So these assets can be of different kinds, such as land, houses, plants, shares. Fourth, we can also see the changes in country stock of gold or reserve of foreign currency as they are included here. So all these transactions would be entered in the row number 5. So opposite transactions would enter into row number 10. So these capital movements are classified into two categories. This is important, namely direct and portfolio investment. So what is direct investment? What is portfolio investment? So direct foreign investment refers to investment undertaken in the firms belonging to other countries. So it is a direct foreign investment by acquiring control over them. Now let me give you a small example. Resident of America may undertake direct investment in India either by setting up a plant. So American, he is setting up a plant in India. So he is bringing in foreign direct investment, or through acquisition of an Indian firm. Let's say I am an Indian firm and I am selling my firm to an American. So that American is going to give me a lot of money. So this type of an investment is called direct foreign investment. Similarly, Indians may invest in foreign firms. So we can also go and buy abroad. So this is direct investment. Now what do we mean by portfolio investment? This is a form of investment under which companies and residents of a country purchase shares. So whenever we talk of portfolio, just link it with shares. So basically, it is purchase of shares in the foreign companies or buy bonds issued by foreign governments. So it is like a financial market, share market or bond market, which you have studied in commerce, raising capital by for companies. So it also includes purchases of shares of domestic companies and government bonds by people of other countries. So like an Indian citizen is buying shares of American companies. Similarly, an American can buy shares of Indian companies. So this sort of investment, it is capital movement under portfolio investment. Similarly, a country can use foreign currency in two important ways: by importing goods and services and by exporting capital. Therefore, import of goods and services and export of capital are listed on the debit side. The Reserve Bank of India (RBI) gives a detailed classification of various items in the capital account under 6 heads, namely foreign investment, loans, banking capital, rupee debt, and other capital and monetary movements. So, with this, let us stop here. We continue again. So, take care. I love you all. Bye bye.